Hey, what's happening, friend? Big Dog Ethan here, coming at you from a recording on Radio Free Nashville. And this is none other than the Unnatural State of Affairs, where we talk about all the unnatural events occurring in this very corrupt political system of ours. As I mentioned last week, I recorded a whole very long segment on Zohran Mamdani's victory in the Democratic primary election for the New York City mayoral race. I had to leave it out of last week's show due to time constraints because Trump was like, hey, let's do an airstrike on Iran. And, well, you know, there was a lot to discuss with that. So I've re-recorded the segment on Mamdani's victory, made some tweaks, added some updates at the end. So that's what I'll be sharing with you this week. Before we get into that, though, some friendly reminders for you. If you haven't subscribed, what the fuck are you doing? Get notified of every new upload that drops by typing in your email address in the description below. Doesn't cost you a dime unless you want to pay for the optional subscription for $5 a month. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. In any case, definitely be sure to at least subscribe for free so that way you get updated on every new post that I drop. Also, be sure to hit that like button and leave comments on whatever platform you're enjoying this on. And if you happen to be free next Thursday at 4 to 6 p.m. and you're dying for some punk and rap music, don't you dare open up that Spotify or Apple Music app because fuck those guys. Instead, tune into the live broadcast of this show on Radio Free Nashville, where you'll hear the newest episode and a whole hour of banging punk and rap tunes. I know, kind of disappointing that it will have to be censored because, you know, we got to please Daddy FCC, but nonetheless, you get to hear the segment as soon as it drops. That's like the first place you're going to hear that shit. And again, you get some awesome music tacked onto that at the end as well. So yeah. Anyways, those are all the plugs, housekeeping things I need to do. So let's get on to talking about Zohran Mamdani. All right. Yeah. So we got to talk about this New York City mayoral race that just went down. Is it over a week ago? Yeah, it'd be over a week ago now. Yeah. Anyways, we got to talk about that race because not only is it an incredible story from an electoral perspective, it also has some hopeful implications for the future of the Democratic Party. Also some scary implications just based on the reaction from the right to the election. So we'll also discuss that as well. But there is some good news for once. Like, I never thought I'd be unironically using the words hopeful implications and Democratic Party in the same sentence, but here we are. So, got to keep a positive attitude in these trying times. Yeah? Now, in case I start living out too much in this segment, let me make it clear. No. I don't think Mamdani is going to instigate the working class revolution in the United States. Hell, this dude could easily not do a fucking thing about his proposed policies. But nonetheless, this is still a significant campaign because it's clearly indicating a blueprint, albeit a rough one, of how Democrats should be trying to rebuild trust with young voters because, let's keep it real, they kind of lost that trust last election, yeah? And frankly, I think it's evidence of an absolute vibe shift within the Democratic base as a whole. Now, we'll get to all that in a second, though. But first, we need to lay out the context, right? So New York City's current mayor has been underwhelming, to say the least. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I have a full understanding of Mayor Eric Adams' policy record, not having read much about his time in office, but let's note just a few fuck-ups to understand the vibes around this dude and why no one likes him. Literally, I just got this from browsing through his Wikipedia and finding some, legit sources that were cited. So in 2023, got to pull up the source view here. In 2023, this dude, Eric Adams, he goes to this annual interfaith breakfast, and when he gets up to address the whole crowd, it's like a bunch of leaders of different religious communities around New York City. He gets up in front of the crowd there, and he says, quote, "Don't tell me about no separation of church and state. State is the body. Church is the heart. You take the heart out of the body dies." Unquote. Yeah, that's just the first one. I mean, already this dude's like, yes, who needs separation of church and state? Let's turn to a theocracy, bro. Okay, because we gotta have people, devoting their entire lives to these imaginary beings that they'll never know if they actually exist or not until they fucking die. But anyways, yeah. So already this dude is just kind of fucking out there, right? On top of that, though, the dude spent $50,000 of taxpayer funds to resettle migrants around the country and beyond. Granted, I guess now the new low bar is simply not deporting them to what you could argue are concentration camps. We've seen I don't know if y'all saw recently, but the new court records from the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case just dropped, and he's alleging in this court case that he was tortured there at this El Salvador prison that he got deported to. So I guess the new low bar now is not deporting them to torture prisons. So I guess Eric Adams isn't the worst on this issue, but also Jesus fucking Christ. On top of that, the dude vetoed four bills that would have increased aid for homeless folks in New York City. Dog, what? Now, on top of that, the dude refused to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Yeah, that's pretty, especially right now, it's pretty bad. If you look at any of the polling on people's views on Israel and Palestine, even if you compare it between now and 5 years ago or something like that, it's like night and day. I mean, now that people have been kind of inundated with 4K footage of children, civilians getting bombed to smithereens and being mutilated and all this horror. I mean, literally, you can't open social media now. At least if you're at least if you consume political content on social media, you really can't escape that shit on there. I mean, it's horrible. So the fact that he will not call for a ceasefire in Gaza, that's also pretty fucking bad, especially at this point. But I'm kind of, leaving the worst for last here. Yeah, the dude got indicted on corruption charges last year in the United States. The place that is very lax with its campaign finance laws. So if you're getting indicted on corruption charges here, at the very least it means you can't even do the corruption competently. So, and at worst, it means that he's just going above and beyond what is typically allowed, right? So yeah, let's just get a few more specifics on this, because it is quite comical. This is from the New York Times. Quote, Mayor Eric Adams of New York City has been indicted on federal charges of bribery, conspiracy, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations. The indictment, which was unsealed Thursday morning, follows a roughly 3-year investigation that focused, at least in part, on whether he conspired with the Turkish government to receive illegal foreign campaign contributions and whether he took official actions on its behalf. The indictment accuses Mr. Adams of crimes going back a decade since he took office as Brooklyn Borough President in 2014 by improperly accepting benefits that included luxury international travel from wealthy business people and at least one Turkish government official. As he ran for mayor in 2021, prosecutors say, Mr. Adams sought illegal foreign contributions to his campaign and other things of value, and his benefactors sought to cash in on their investments. All right, and we'll skip further down the article just so you kind of get the gist of it. Quote, Mr. Adams is accused of illegally soliciting foreign donations from the government of Turkey to his 2021 mayoral campaign, and the indictment charges him with accepting bribes by doling out favors in return. Federal prosecutors say that shortly before his election as mayor, he pressured city fire department officials to sign off on a new high-rise Turkish consulate in time for a visit by the country's president, I'm going to butcher this, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, during the United Nations General Assembly. Federal law prohibits U.S. candidates from soliciting or receiving foreign donations. According to prosecutors, Turkish money was funneled into Mr. Adams' campaign with his knowledge. Again, that's what was alleged at the time. Yeah, bro basically did the most shameless right-wing pivot, claiming that the Biden administration was going after him for his criticism of the Biden administration's approach to immigration. This comes from Politico. Quote, Adams, only a couple years after lauding Biden as his political model, has now taken a page from Donald Trump's playbook. He suggested the investigations into him are politically motivated, seeming to blame his clash with the White House for making him a target. Quote, despite our pleas, when the federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief, I put the people of New York before party and politics, Adams said in a video statement released after news of the indictment broke. Unquote. I should note, by the way, I don't know if it was this video. I think it was this video specifically.
My fellow New Yorkers, it is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies. But they would.
Okay, for those who are listening to this audio only or like listening to the live broadcast, Eric Adams in this video, I don't know how I forgot about this. He is literally doing like he's effectively saying he's like doing his most to make himself look guilty visually, because like he's wearing, this fancy suit with like a bright pink tie, and he's got like a little like a, man, why am I forgetting? Was it a kerchief, I think is what you call it? Like he's got like a little, or handkerchief or whatever, popped out of his, out of the pocket on his breast. Out of the pocket on his breast? What the fuck am I talking about? Out of his breast pocket on his suit coat. Like this dude is, for whatever reason, he is just giving hard mafia boss vibes, which is like the last thing you want to be doing whenever you're making a video that's saying, I am not guilty. God, this guy's an absolute fucking fool. Yeah, he basically like glaze it. He basically like, turns his back on the Biden administration because, God forbid, they actually investigate corruption, which, just so we're clear, if they really wanted to do something about corruption, they would do something about Citizens United. But as we all know, Democrats would never do anything about that because they also benefit from, lax campaign finance donation laws. Anyways. So yeah, he turns his back on the Biden administration for, investigating blatant corruption, and yeah, he just like does a full pivot to Trump, and of course, within like the first few weeks of the Trump, within the Trump regime's taking of the White House, they drop all the charges on him. So Trump definitely returned that fucking favor for him. So, even from a centrist standpoint, there is no reason to like this corrupt fucker. He at best did jack shit, and at worst made a mockery of the office of the mayor by allegedly taking illegal foreign bribes and making this dishonest pivot to keep his ass out of jail. And, it was clear once the news broke that Yeah, this election was going to be open fucking season because, again, no fucking reason for anyone, whether you're left or right or like, there's just no fucking reason to like this guy. And that's where Zohran Mamdani comes in. Now, he was elected to the New York State Assembly as a Democratic Socialist of America endorsed Democrat in 2020. And he ran on a platform supporting universal housing, prison and police reform, and nationalizing utility service providers. After all that shit about Mayor Adams started dropping in September and October of last year, Mamdani announced his campaign for mayor, identifying three key positions. Free buses. Do I have the... Yeah, no, I can't find it. It's in this article that I'm showing up on the screen, though. And by the way, I do have links to all my sources on like every post that I make onto the Kennel. If you want to question me, if you want to critique me, I'm very open about that. And I really feel like more commentary podcasts should do that. It feels a little bit lazy whenever they don't. But anyways, that's a whole other story. So yeah, the three policy positions again for Mamdani: free buses, freezing the rent, and opening publicly owned grocery stores. Now, it's kind of hard for me to describe at what point he started gaining traction, but I can say that I first saw an ad from him earlier this year on Instagram, and goddamn, this dude knows how to do campaign ads. Here's one right here. Oh, I'll need to start this over.
I'm Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent-stabilized tenant.
Wait, you're gonna freeze my rent?
Yes.
Did I hear rent freeze?
Yes! This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
No hike?
None.
This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
It's true. As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent.
Paid for by Zohran for NYC.
So, yeah, this dude, he knows how to do campaign ads. Now, before I show you some more clips of Mamdani, especially his campaign ads, we got to talk about his main opponent, Andrew fucking Cuomo. Now, if you don't remember him, back in 2021, he was the Democratic governor of New York, of like the state of New York, who had to resign after facing numerous allegations of sexual harassment from 11 staffers, according to Politico. I don't know if he ever had to go to court for it or anything like that, so that's kind of the only reason why I say allegations, but 11 staffers, dog, it's kind of all but confirmed, but yeah, no, this guy resigned as governor. He resigned from his position as governor of New York State after being outed as a sex pest, and he still said, "Bro, I think I got a shot for New York mayor. Let's fucking go!" Yeah, and it didn't help either that the dude's COVID-19 policies allowed for nursing home residents who caught the illness to be put back into their nursing homes. And that story first broke in a 2020 ProPublica article. Quote, this is just like a little blurb from it in the middle. Quote, Charles Brannis, who leads the epidemiology department at Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health, said he could appreciate New York State's concern about a shortage of hospital beds in hard-hit areas. Quote, the New York State advisory looks like it was intended as a quote-unquote reverse triage strategy to clear acute and critical care hospital beds, regardless of whether those beds had people with COVID-19 or not, Brannis said. Possibly. The positive trade-off they had in mind with the policy was that more lives would be saved with additional open critical care beds than would be lost in transfer to nursing homes. But, Brannis said, he believes the policy could well have increased New York's COVID-19 death toll by a magnitude that will be determined by future researchers. Quote, If you introduce 4,500 people sick with a potentially lethal disease into a vulnerable and notoriously imperfectly monitored population, he said, people are apt to die, unquote. So this came out like just when people were first starting to speculate that this was going to be an issue, yeah? Now, again, this is just when experts are starting to suspect that something bad's going on, right? About a year later, the Attorney General, Letitia James, she puts out this report after about a 6-month to year-long investigation. And yeah, she basically found that nursing homes or deaths in nursing homes, they were undercounted by up to 50%. Now, one can maybe say, well, I mean, they did even say in that initial ProPublica report that, at least there were good intentions behind it. Unfortunately, though, the Justice Department opened an investigation into Cuomo's testimony in May under suspicions that he made intentionally misleading statements under oath. And I forget, the specific... Yeah, that's right. So during one of the debates, I can't remember which one, but during one of the debates, he got pressed on a moderator asking if he had any involvement in the the creation of that policy or in the making of the initial report on COVID stats, not the Letitia James one, but their initial reporting on COVID deaths that were that were undercounted, right? And she was literally like, yes or no, were you involved in making that report? And he would not give a clear yes or no answer. And she pressed him on it multiple fucking times, right? So couldn't even give a straight yes or no to something simple like that. Was he involved in making that initial false report? And on top of it, he's also getting investigated for making false statements intentionally while under oath, while giving testimony to Congress. So he's just a fucking liar. But of course, we can't ignore the fact that he's partaken in the typical legalized bribery that plagues our entire political system. You can find all sorts of wealthy donors who have given to Cuomo while he was campaigning for Attorney General and governor in the New York State Board of Elections database. Just as an example of one of the interesting finds, Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein. I'm pretty sure most people pronounce it Weinstein, but anyways, Harvey Weinstein. He shows up there multiple times with donations of, tens of thousands or just in the single digits of thousands each. For those who don't know, Harvey Weinstein, yes, the dude who used to run the Weinstein Company and then, got found guilty for sexual assault of multiple women and abusing his fucking power to do that. He took money from this motherfucker. Andrew Cuomo did. So heartwarming. So heartwarming to see sexual predators standing in solidarity with each other. Jesus fucking Christ. But what about the mayoral race in New York specifically? Well, here's a June 1st article from the New York Times. Quote, where's it at? There it is. Quote, with $10 million raised so far, the super PAC Fix the City, the one that was supporting Andrew Cuomo, Fix the City is already the single largest outside spending force in New York City's political history, surpassing a record set in 2021. It has spent multiples more on ads than any campaign in the race, blanketing New Yorkers' screens in peons. What kind of language is this? God, I cannot handle the elitist attitude of the New York Times. Anyways, blanketing New Yorker screens in pay-ins to the former governor. The next biggest candidate's super PAC, set up to back Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist who is second in recent polls, has 1/50th of the funds. 1/50th. Now, granted, side note here, not a huge fan of that, but Also, he's got the right policies, so I guess. Hopefully there was some attempt at, I don't know, what's the word? Transparency with who was actually donating to that super PAC, because yeah, not a good look for like any socialist who care about campaign finance, which is really going to be all of them, because we're not a huge fan of like massive amounts of money being donated to candidates, and that like influencing the ways in which they vote and the ways in which they run their campaign and like what policies they choose to campaign on. But anyways, back to the article. Quote, Many of Fix the City's donors are longtime Cuomo supporters who share his moderate policy views or fear what Mr. Mamdani's tax the rich policies would do. Among them are Barry Diller, the media mogul. He donated $250,000. Billy Joel. Yeah, Billy Joel, the musician, donated $50,000 to to Cuomo's campaign. Bill Ackman, the investor, he donated $250,000. We'll get to him. We have a little more to say about him later on. And finally, Kenneth Langone, the Home Depot founder, he donated $50,000. So yeah, considering all of that, it is absolutely fair to call Cuomo a corrupt, grandma-murdering sex pest. That is not hyperbole. And this guy decided to run for mayor of New York fucking City. And boy, oh boy, did Zohran know how to annihilate Cuomo's ass in his ads. Let's take a look at this first one, shall we?
Says I move my hands too much in these videos. So for this one, they're staying in my pockets. The other day on the subway, I met a New Yorker. But get this, they vote in California. I know this is true for many of you. You're Democrats who've chosen not to vote here because you believe your vote counts more elsewhere. Every 4 years, you vote absentee from your parents' address in Philly or 3 apartments and go in Atlanta. But come on, you live here. I get it, I do.
Keep them in your pockets.
Especially after this last election. We all wanted to defeat Donald Trump, and New York felt like a lock. But in many ways, this election, Trump's back on the ballot. We have a choice between Andrew Cuomo, funded by the same billionaires who put Donald Trump back in the White House, and our campaign, who will tax billionaires to make the city affordable. It's a referendum on where our party goes. So in just this one instance, ask yourself, WWDFGD, what would a disgraced former governor do? Well, Cuomo changed his registration immediately after not having lived here for more than 30 years. So if he's voting from his new address, so should you. With just single digits between us and Andrew Cuomo, your vote can make the difference. You have until June 14th, this Saturday, to change your registration in New York City. So head to ZohranforNYC.com/vote. Let's win this thing. I do.
Keep them in your pockets.
My team.
Okay, it might not be clear to those who are like listening to this audio only, but there's like a whole running bit where like his team tells him to keep his hands in his pockets, and that's where you're hearing like all those like slaps on his hands. Anyways, so that's the first one. Let's take a look at another one though. We're just gonna enjoy some of these, yeah. Oof, burped up some Mountain Dew there.
On Monday, Andrew Cuomo was denied more than $620,000 in public matching funds. The New York City Campaign Finance Board determined that he likely colluded with his MAGA-backed super PAC. Habibi, that's against the law. The news comes just 1 month after the Cuomo campaign was denied any matching funds after they couldn't follow basic paperwork requirements. So much for the competence candidate. But Cuomo doesn't have to worry that much. His super PAC has raised nearly $9 million from real estate billionaires, Trump donors, and mega corporations. The Walmart heirs donated, so did MAGA hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman. In fact, this week, his PAC got $1 million from DoorDash, a good way to buy influence over labor and street safety regulations. Taking money from Trump donors, skirting the law, getting denied matching funds, New York already has a mayor who does that. The good news is we have the chance to turn the page on corruption in just 6 weeks. And we want to hit 622,000 doors by the end of next week. 1 door for each dollar that Andrew Cuomo was denied for unlawfully conspiring with his super PAC. Comment status Cuomo, 1 word, no spaces, and we'll DM you a link to sign up to Canvas.
Okay, one more. This dude just most of the time whenever I see like, I don't know, get out the vote stuff, and this is no disrespect to, anyone that, I got to know from the American Democracy Project. Like that, don't get me wrong, it is very important. But also as like someone who does go vote a lot, like it's kind of like preaching to the choir. So typically whenever I see like get out the vote, I don't know, ads or PSAs or whatever, I'm just like, yeah, got it, already done. But the way in which he does it, like, it's still entertaining for me to watch. So, you know, we're going to watch one more. Yeah.
If you're not Andrew Cuomo, keep scrolling. Andrew, I know you're bad with deadlines and moving to a new city is stressful. But there's an important election coming up and we're trying to fix the crisis you created. If you want to vote, you only have a week left to change your registration from Westchester to New York City. I know. You're shy. I assume that's why you've been hiding all campaign. But it's important to make your voice heard. I know what you're thinking. If you're not a disgraced former governor and you're still watching, does it apply to you? If you're a registered Democrat? Absolutely. If you're already registered to vote here in New York but need to change your address, you gotta do it by June 9th. If you lived in Astoria but now you live in Bay Ridge, changing your registration means getting to vote at the poll site closest to you. And if you just got here or you've lived here for decades but still vote in California or New Jersey, you got until June 14th. But don't wait. Head to zohranfornyc.com/vote because we've got an affordable city to win. Stop voting in New Jersey.
So, yeah, this dude knows how to fucking advertise. He hits Cuomo on all of his ties to big business and MAGA donors, still reinforces his own policy goals, and then he doesn't just do like the go out and vote, kiddo sort of thing. No, like he actually makes like a very genuine and like entertaining appeal to young voters to like get out, register, go vote. Yeah. Chef's kiss, honestly, like, so, great campaigner. And if just based on watching his ads, you can kind of tell why he won, even if it wasn't for policy reasons. It was just because the dude is matching the vibes within the Democratic Party right now. But of course, it's not like, you know, Mamdani had no resistance whatsoever. He got a lot of resistance from mainstream news outlets. Yeah, they carried out the BS attacks that they typically would levy against any left-leaning candidate. We're going to take a look at a couple examples. Exhibit A. This clip from one of the debates. Specifically, this one was on NBC New York. It took place on June 4th. I had to fact check myself there. So yeah, it took place on June 4th. Oddly enough, for some reason, so it's the full video, but for whatever reason, they decided to upload it at like 240p. So for those watching the video version, ain't my fault. Ain't because of my internet connection. It's because for whatever reason, some intern was like, oh yeah, 240p. That'll be totally fine in the year of our Lord, 2025. But anyways, so June 4th, primary debate. It's getting down to like the last 5 minutes of this debate. 2-hour debate, by the way. It's between 8 candidates, and these moderators, for whatever reason, felt like it was important to ask. They felt like it was important to ask the candidates where their first international visit would be if elected. Now, look, as a guy who's never lived in New York City, maybe there's some cultural significance to that, as the moderators mentioned here, but are voters really gonna go to the ballot box concerned about a candidate's first trip when those voters gotta go straight to work to pay for their increasingly unaffordable basic 21st century living necessities after they vote? Like, are they really gonna care about that? No. But nonetheless, let's see if these all-knowing wise moderators manage to elicit some insightful remark.
Okay. The first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Okay. Mr. Landers.
Sorry, we gotta stop. So at first it looks like she's kind of caught off guard by that. She's like, first visit. The Holy Land. Like that right there just made me think she suddenly realized, or like she suddenly remembered, Oh, yes. I remember my consultants telling me what to answer to this question. Because the thing is, like, responding with the Holy Land, it's something, in one sense, it does indicate, like, for one, that she's religious or whatever. So, it does kind of, reach out to just religious voters in general. But I don't know why. I'm just suddenly noticing a weird echo. But anyways, but on top of that, too, it's also a very kind of neutral way of saying that you're going to go visit Israel. And that's going to obviously become an important thing as we proceed here.
Sorry.
Boy, what Trump is doing to Canada, there's a lot of opportunities for us to partner better with them.
Ms. Ramos.
I'd love to meet Claudia Sheinbaum, but I'd probably head to Colombia, to my parents' homeland.
Mr. Myrie?
I am the proud son of 2 Caribbean immigrants. I represent a robust Caribbean constituency. I'd like to go to the Caribbean as my first visit.
Mr. Cuomo?
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel.
So he's already going on to say, oh, no, I'm going to go to Israel. I love Israel more. No, I love Israel more. I love apartheid states. I love apartheid states even more. God, don't you love genocide? Yes, I fucking love genocide. Oh! Like, just fucking disgusting. The fact that, like, you would... I mean, the fact that, like, you would even, like... The fact that anyone would take a question like that for a New York City mayoral race debate, the fact that anyone would just, like, validate, like, the need to answer a question like that, is just insane in and of itself. But the fact that suddenly it turns into like a, I don't know, like a Israel glazing competition of who can say that they love Israel more. Just fucking disgusting. Look, if you want to be one of those people who are like, oh no, actually I support Zionism because XYZ, as we're going to discuss here, 1, cool, then you definitely don't like democracy. But 2, at the very least, right now in this moment, to be saying, like, to be bragging about wanting to visit Israel as they are, like, committing war crimes on a daily basis with our taxpayer funds backing them up. No, like, it's just disgusting to be saying that sort of thing. So even if you're one of those people who likes to say, like, oh, Israel has a right to exist or whatever, I don't know. I guess I could see an argument where, sure, you can, like, affirm its right to exist, but you can't be affirming the ridiculous shit that they're doing in Gaza right now, killing civilians on a daily basis. Dropside News has been doing a lot of great reporting on this. What they're doing now is, what the IDF is doing right now, they are literally setting, so you have, like, this aid organization, I think it's called, like, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation or something like that. They're basically setting up these aid sites, and they're letting the IDF know about it, so the IDF can go to those aid sites and start gunning down Palestinians as they're trying to get desperately needed aid. I mean, this is the kind of depraved shit that the Israeli government is carrying out right now. So to be bragging about wanting to go travel to fucking Israel right now on live television in front of, what, hundreds of thousands of people? Maybe 10? No, yeah, it's definitely got to be hundreds of thousands. Probably millions of people live in New York, right? I don't know what the population number is. Someone can fact check me on that. Point being is, just fucking disgusting. And as we're going to see here, Mamdani is going to set these idiots, not just idiots, but honestly fucking freaks, straight.
Followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, 2 of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Smart answer. Hey, it's a very polite way of saying, hey, we're here for a debate about, like, you know, which one of us is best to be the mayor of New York City. Why are we talking about our fucking vacation plans? So, very smooth answer to just a very odd question to cram into, like the last question you ask in a fucking debate. Again, for the New York City mayoral race, for the Democratic primary, among like the Democratic primary opponents in that race, right? Very strange fucking question. But as soon as Mamdani gives like probably the only sane answer on that stage, this is what happens.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
Okay, so a lot of weird shit just happened in that moment. Number one, none of the other candidates who responded to that question thus far, none of them were asked for any sort of follow-up, answer, right? But for whatever reason, the moderators decided, oh no, the most sane response, the guy who effectively said, why the fuck are we talking about our vacation plans? Not only does the moderator ask for clarification, she wants him to specify, would he visit Israel? Again, the state, the apartheid state that is plausibly committing a genocide right now. And she presses him on that as if it's like weird or unnatural for him to not go to Israel. Let's watch this continue out. It's just fucking insane.
I've said in a UJA questionnaire that I believe that you need not travel to Israel to stand up for Jewish New Yorkers. And that is what I will be doing as the mayor. I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
So we started with this wild fucking question at the end of a 2-hour debate within the last 5 minutes. Then we go to, again, after Zohran responds with the most sane response, I have no plans to go anywhere right now. I'm going to stay here and do my fucking job because that's what the people in New York elected me to do. To which the moderator responds, but would you visit Israel? Yes or no question. No, I'm going to stay here and do my fucking job, and I will, of course, connect with and be sure that all Jewish New Yorkers feel represented and are being listened to and are actually having their concerns being responded with policy actions if I am elected mayor. And then she just goes to, well, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Now, obviously, what this moderator is getting at is, Zohran Mamdani. He does have a record of doing a lot of pro-Palestine organizing. In fact, he started, I believe it was the Students for Justice in Palestine chapter at the university that he attended. So obviously, what this moderator is trying to get at is trying to frame him as someone who is potentially anti-Semitic, which of course is just fucking bullshit. There is literally no documented evidence of him saying, and as we'll get to later on in this episode, he literally, Mayor Adams will get pressed on this. If he can even think of specific quote or something specific that Mamdani said, that was anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas or something like that. And they got nothing on him. They got fucking nothing on him.
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
He won't say it has a right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very clear.
And his answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
That's what he was trying to say.
No. Unlike you, I answer questions very directly.
All right,
and I want to be very clear. I believe every state should be a state of equal rights.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr. Blake, where would you go?
It's just so fucking funny because clearly she wanted to try to get him into this fucking gotcha sort of position, and she just couldn't do it because guess what? Turns out it's not too fucking hard to support democracy and actually stand on those fucking principles. But in order to do it, you know what you got to do? You got to reject the intertwining of the church and state. Mamdani was principled about that, and he said, no, I don't support that. That's why I don't support Zionism. And he just made that moderator look like a fucking fool. But moreover, all those moderators should get fucking fired, because Jesus Christ, why should that even be part of this discussion in a fucking debate? Like, it's just absolute fucking insanity. So, and just so I may really hammer this point home for anyone who might be confused as to, why Zionism, is inherently anti-democratic. I always bring up this, June 11th, 2021 article from the Brookings Institute. By the way, Brookings, very centrist-y outlet. I literally, whenever I was like interning in DC, I found myself attending this Q&A that they had with I think it was former Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, and like literally the most centrist-y type of institution one could ever imagine, right? But they put out this article. It's titled, America Must Rethink Its Unique and Contradictory Advocacy of Israel's Jewishness. And I always cite this paragraph in the middle here as kind of a simple baseline explanation of why Zionism is inherently anti-democratic, why that principle that, again, was a founding ideology for the state of Israel, why it is anti-democratic. Quote, advocating for Israel specifically as a Jewish state directly and indirectly conflicts with the notion that states should represent and treat all their citizens equally, which is at the heart of democracy, an issue that then President Biden, has made central for his administration and its foreign policy. First, there is the obvious issue of a citizen's sense of belonging to a state, defined in terms that exclude them. More centrally, this formulation privileges Jewishness, even of non-citizens, over citizenship of non-Jews in some important ways. For example, a Jew who is a non-citizen with no relatives in Israel and no direct connection to the state or to the land has the automatic right to citizenship and to assets bestowed by the state to go along with it, while a relative, even a spouse, of a non-Jewish citizen of Israel does not have a similar right. So, that's all to say. There are absolutely valid reasons to take issue with Zionism as an ideology, and they don't have a damn thing to do with anti-Semitic attitudes, but obviously those moderators thought that. That's why they were fucking pushing him on it, so they could, again, generate controversy and, of course, generate more eyeballs, generate more content, and generate more revenue. But despite the debate moderators' best attempts to perpetuate this, again, the smear that's been regurgitated by Andrew Cuomo and also other mainstream news outlets, especially Fox News, it was ultimately ineffective when he was able to respond with such a straightforward answer. Nah, I don't really like countries that promote one religion over others because I like democracy. Do you like democracy? Fucking brilliant. Just fucking brilliant. This dude knows how to fucking campaign. But that smear that we were just dissecting for like the past 15 fucking minutes, that pales in comparison to this one. Coming from the brilliant fucking idiots at the New York Times editorial board when ruminating on who to endorse. The article is titled, Our Advice to Voters in a Vexing Race for New York Mayor. Okay, so we're already seeing the New York Times editorial board doing this bullshit both sidesism that is frustratingly characteristic of mainstream news outlets. Who could be the better candidate? The corrupt, grandma-killing sex pest? Or the candidate who respects international law and has a platform of light socialist policies? Vexing indeed. Yeah, let's go through this shitstorm. So we're going to skip the first few paragraphs because basically it just amounts to the editorial board pretending to know the needs of New York City. Really the only important context that you'll need to know for our purposes. The editorial board states in the first few paragraphs that it thinks that de Blasio is, like former Mayor de Blasio, is a primary cause for the city's problems. Which, to be honest, might be true. I don't know that much about de Blasio's performance, but their view of de Blasio will be relevant later on. So that's just really all you need to know for our purposes. Quote, "The polls indicate that two candidates have emerged as the frontrunners. Andrew Cuomo, a former governor and federal housing secretary, and Zohran Mamdani, a state legislator who represents a Queens district. Mr. Mamdani, a charismatic 33-year-old, is running a joyful campaign full of viral videos in which he talks with voters. He offers the kind of fresh political style for which many people are hungry during the angry era of Trump. Unfortunately, Mr. Mamdani is running on an agenda uniquely unsuited to the city's challenges. He is a democratic socialist who too often ignores the unavoidable trade-offs of governance. He favors rent freezes that could restrict housing supply and make it harder for younger New Yorkers and new arrivals to afford housing." Oh, it could. What else could it do? Perhaps, dare I say, freeze the fucking rent? Like, that is such, bumping into the microphone here in absolute rage, that is such a classic manipulative tactic. Vaguely mention one way in which a proposal could negatively impact an issue without any cited sources, mind ya, but don't address other ways in which it could positively or negatively impact the problem. The New York Times claims to seek the truth and help people understand the world. It's literally what it says, like on their New York Times company. Like that's their like fucking motto. But at convenient times, they'll throw that ambition out the fucking window. It's a clear attempt to gaslight readers into thinking rent freeze equals bad. Okay, back to this joke of an article. Quote, "He wants the government to operate grocery stores as if customer service and retail sales were strengths of the public sector." Okay, but what is an actual strength of the public sector? The limitation of the for-profit incentive, which, if left alone, obviously drives up the cost of groceries. And come to think of it, lowering cost of groceries would inherently result in improving customer service and retail sales because the price is fucking lowered. And again, no sources cited, no polls, no nothing. Just fear-mongering. Like, there's not even an attempt to critically engage with these policies, which, again, going back to the New York Times motto, which apparently they just seem to kind of care about every now and then, if they really sought the truth, if they really wanted to help people understand the world, they would at least be giving these ideas their due fucking diligence, but they're not doing that. Because they don't actually care about that shit. All they care about is driving up their bottom line, about increasing their fucking profits. Jesus fucking Christ. No wonder people don't trust the fucking mainstream news outlets these days. Like, I cannot tell you how many times, like, I would hear people complain, you know, because again, I'm a I graduated with a degree in journalism. I heard so many people complain about how, people are so, people don't trust our news outlets. And it's like, this is fucking why. Because at times when it matters, they absolutely drop the fucking ball every single fucking time. Back to the article, though. Quote, "He minimizes the importance of policing," unquote. Okay. How? Now, granted, they probably mean that in the sense that, because he has previously supported defunding the police, that he minimizes their importance. But actually, that is recognizing their importance and realizing, hey, if we give these fuckers way too much money and we let them just militarize themselves and basically become like a, I don't know, like some kind of military force to be deployed on citizens who are peacefully protesting, then yeah, that means that you need to defund them, because guess what? They're getting too much fucking money. And they, it's kind of like what they say about with the military-industrial complex when, whenever you have the more hammers you have, the more everything looks like a fucking nail. I think that's how the saying goes. And actually, we even have some recent evidence too. Like if the NYPD's deployment on Columbia University showed us anything, it's that funding a militarized police that locks up students who are protesting their school's investments in companies arming a genocidal state, that does not lead to a safer and certainly not an inclusive or welcoming community. And of course, that none of that even touches on the historical weaponization of the NYPD in carrying out a racist and pointless fucking drug war that criminalizes a mental health condition. But again, this is yet another claim that the New York Times editorial board makes without citing any sources or making any attempt to consider why a proposed policy from Zohran might work. Man, I'm like breaking out a sweat, just like yelling about the New York fucking Times. I really cannot stand these asshats. Back to the article, though. Quote, most worrisome, he shows little concern about the disorder of the past decade, even though its costs have fallen hardest on the city's working class and poor residents. Mr. Mamdani, who has called Mr. de Blasio the best New York mayor of his lifetime, offers an agenda that remains alluring among elite progressives, but has proved damaging to city life. Unquote. With how minimal the sourcing is on this article, one must imagine that this entire fucking piece was written with ChatGPT. Because, again, like, for one, what makes them say that this agenda of his is alluring to elite progressives? It might just be alluring to people who can't afford to pay their fucking rent. But no, obviously that is too simple of an explanation for the high-minded dipshits at the New York Times. Quote, Mr. Mamdani would also bring less relevant experience than perhaps any mayor in New York history. Unquote. Yeah, how did that relevant experience work out for de Blasio? Now, I'll be honest, I don't really know much about de Blasio's effects on New York, but the writers earlier on labeled de Blasio's quote-unquote main legacy as one that, quote, contributed to the city's recent decline. Yet, de Blasio's prior experience to being mayor was being elected to the city council and then as the city's public advocate. So when their need for relevant experience was met, they found that requirement didn't necessarily lead to a good term. But they still hold that expectation for Mamdani when they know that having that experience doesn't mean a candidate will have a good or bad term as a mayor. Just double standards across this fucking article. It's ridiculous. Quote, he has never run a government department or private organization of any size. As a state legislator, he has struggled to execute his own agenda. A telling example came last year. Given an opportunity to expand a pilot program offering free bus rides, one of his signature issues, he instead engaged in a performative protest that doomed the policy, New York Magazine reported. Wait, what? Joy! They finally cited something when shitting on this candidate from a supposedly objective and journalistic perspective. Now, Why would Zohran do such a thing? Why would he tank his successful program for a supposedly performative protest? Well, let's take a look at this rare cited evidence from the cited New York Magazine article. Quote, at the end of the year-long bus pilot, Mamdani and New York State Senator Mike Gianaris touted the victory in an op-ed in The Nation, calling it, quote, a resounding success, unquote. However, according to some of his colleagues, the story didn't end there. During the 2024 budget negotiations, Mamdani had an opportunity to extend the program. This should have been a no-brainer. But he took issue with another part of the budget regarding housing, specifically an act on individual apartment improvements, IAIs. These, he argued, would be a way for landlords to say they were doing repairs while actually raising the rent on rent-stabilized tenants. According to those with knowledge of the conversations, Mamdani told New York Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, I think it's how you pronounce it, that he planned to vote no on the budget because of the IAIs. He also filmed a video explaining his reason for his vote. Heastie said he would pull the expansion of the free bus pilot if he did so. Mamdani refused to budge, even though the bill would pass regardless of his support. Quote, Zohran didn't want to get strong-armed again, and he said, I'm voting no, says a Democratic legislator. Quote, and Carl said, well, if you're voting no, then I'm not going to put the buses in the budget. It's not worth it. You're not cooperative and you don't know how to negotiate, so maybe this will teach you something, unquote. Heastie and Mamdani say this never happened. Mamdani's campaign adds that the results for the pilot program weren't out until that September, and legislators wanted to see them before they voted on whether to continue it. As a result, the free bus program didn't continue after a year. Quote, this is literally a material good being delivered to the working class, the legislator continues, and he threw it away for a performance, unquote. So, one, even if you take the anonymous source's story at face value, it's pretty understandable why Mamdani wouldn't vote in favor of that budget, especially if you consider that before he became a legislator, the dude worked for a nonprofit that provided assistance for New Yorkers facing rent troubles or evictions. No one who actually has their constituents' interests at heart would vote for a bill that allows landlords to jack up rents while pretending that the costs are going to repairs. 2, the whole existence of this argument is denied by both parties. And Mamdani, the one who is described as a powerless character in this alleged backroom struggle, gave a much less dramatic explanation. If he was screwed over in such a manner, wouldn't he have a motive to come out and cast blame for Heastie for the cancellation? Not only are there fundamental inconsistencies with this claim of Mamdani doing a damaging, quote-unquote, performative protest, but even if we knew it was true, it would still be kind of based. Yet the New York Times, the paper of record, treats this gossip as gospel to paint a prominent mayoral candidate as some idealistic and naive legislator. Their last line on Mamdani, though, oh, it's marvelous. Quote, he seems to lack the political savvy and instinct for compromise that has made Senator Bernie Sanders, his fellow Democratic socialist, an effective legislator. Unquote. This line is so marvelous, so spectacular, because when Bernie Sanders was running for president in 2020, that perspective was definitely not shared by the New York Times. In fact, my voice is going out here because I'm screaming so much about the New York fucking Times. In fact, despite Bernie not having moved an inch on his political positions since 2020, The editorial board used the exact fucking opposite characterization of Sanders when they laid out their reasoning for endorsing Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar. Yes, Amy Klobuchar in 2020. Who the fuck is Amy Klobuchar, you might ask? Nobody knows. Let's take a look at this article, though. Again, this is their endorsement during the 2020 presidential during the 2020 Democratic presidential primary. Quote, Mr. Sanders would be 79 when he assumed office, and after an October heart attack, his health is a serious concern, unquote. That is so hilarious. That is so fucking funny. Because it wasn't an issue for you fucking hacks when Biden was running for re-election, despite showing major mental decline throughout his entire presidency. It only became an issue for the editorial board until he had to get out on a debate stage 1 month before the Democratic convention and couldn't manage to spit out a fucking coherent sentence. Again, more evidence of double standards applied to candidates who lean further left than your typical corporate shills. But I digress. Quote, then there's how Mr. Sanders approaches politics. He boasts that compromise is anathema to him. Only his prescriptions can be the right ones, even though most are overly rigid, untested, and divisive. He promises that once in office, a groundswell of support will emerge to push through his agenda. 3 years into the Trump administration, we see little advantage to exchanging one overpromising, divisive figure in Washington for another. Unquote. The same legislator that the New York Times editorial board bemoaned as one who thinks, quote, only his prescriptions can be the right ones, unquote, magically, just magically, becomes the one with, quote, political savvy and instinct for compromise, unquote, when they need to bash another Democratic Socialist candidate as too rigid. It's almost as if they make shit up to justify endorsing, or not endorsing, whatever establishment bootlicker is presented to them in a primary election. Which leads me to the weirdest part about this whole fucking article. They do all of this contemplating, all of this ruminating to tepidly imply that Cuomo is the better candidate. Quote, we do not believe that Mr. Mamdani deserves a spot on New Yorkers' ballots. His experience is too thin, and his agenda reads like a turbocharged version of Mr. de Blasio's dismaying mayoralty. As for Mr. Cuomo, we have serious objections to his ethics and conduct, even if he would be better for New York's future than Mr. Mamdani. I mean, it's not a clear endorsement, but to minimize Cuomo's horrendous failures as governor to, quote unquote, lacking ethics and conduct, unquote, it's such a clear example of, I literally have spit on my chin from all my fucking yelling. But for real, I mean, it's utter disdain for any candidate who supports minimal socialist policies that one has to interpret that as a light endorsement of Cuomo. But the whole analysis of this article is to say that Cuomo was such a bad candidate that even the New York Times struggled and ultimately failed to do their usual mental gymnastics and justify endorsing the worst candidate possible. The only defense that one could make of this piece is that its attitude did align with the schizophrenic nature of the polls. Kind of like with the 2024 presidential election, they showed that the race was neck and neck. Every other poll I saw showed one candidate barely eking it out over the other after all the rounds of voting were done. And also, like the 2024 election, boy, were those pollsters proven fucking wrong, y'all. In the first round of voting, because again, it's ranked choice voting, Mamdani beat Cuomo 43.5% to 36.4%. That was as of 7:17 a.m. Last Wednesday from The Guardian. It says 8:17 a.m. on there because it's Eastern time, Central time. Anyways, that's a total blowout for Mamdani, given the fact that all the polls predicted that the election was going to go like all the way into 8 rounds of voting, where again, like all the lower ranked candidates would have all their votes allocated to the remaining candidates. Like they were predicting that, like almost all the polls were predicting it was going to be neck and neck for the maximum number of rounds. The final count just came out Tuesday. Mamdani won 56-44 after only 3 rounds. Again, polls were predicting this is going to go to 8 rounds. This is going to be, it was going to be a nail biter. No. After only 3 rounds of voting, Mamdani won 56-44, a 12-point victory. For reference, Eric Adams won the primary 50.4 to 49.6%. That's what, 0.8% lead that he had over the other major contender, Maya D. Wiley. Fuck if I remember. Anyways, point being is that this was a fucking landslide for Mamdani. And this progressive victory, by the way, didn't only happen in New York City. Other Democratic primaries across New York State demonstrated some serious progressive victories, like the Buffalo mayoral race. Now, I'm not going to delve into all those, but I mentioned that to emphasize a broader point that should illustrate why this matters to disillusioned populist left voters here in Tennessee. The way forward for electoral success for the Democratic Party, it is not going to come from the usual compromising approach where candidates campaign on reaching across the aisle and finding areas of agreement. No. It's going to lie in candidates committing themselves to sticking their middle fingers up to billionaire oligarchs, political consultants, the overt fascist ambitions of the Republican Party, and the covert ones of the Democratic Party. That means running on policies that say redistribute the wealth to the poor, guarantee their rights to quality universal health care, democratic representation in the workplace, higher education, and all their basic needs for living in the wealthiest country in the world. That also means running on policies that demand the halting of the U.S. imperialist project. Mamdani's campaign especially showed that, as he refused to back down from any of his pro-Palestine positions. I mean, y'all, months ago, in an interview with Mehdi Hassan on Zeteo News, Mamdani committed to arresting Benjamin Netanyahu over his arrest warrants from the International Criminal Court if he stepped foot in New York City. Here's that clip.
And Mayor Mamdani, would you welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu to New York City for whatever he comes for, given the US is not a signatory to the ICC, so he can travel to the US, unlike a lot of other countries. Would a Mayor Mamdani welcome Benjamin Netanyahu to the city?
No. As mayor, New York City would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a city that our values are in line with international law. It's time that our actions are also.
Even though the US is not a signatory to the ICC?
No, it's time that we actually step up and make clear what we are willing to do to showcase the leadership that is sorely missing in the federal administration.
Woof. Woof. Beautiful. Beautiful. Fucking beautiful. So, yeah, you can stand your ground on socialist democratic, or democratic socialist policies and still kick ass in a Democratic primary election. Now, does that mean that approach will apply universally? No. New York City's context isn't the same as everywhere else. But what it does show, however, is that Democrats no longer have an excuse to universally declare that a campaign like Mamdani's is too unrealistic. Turns out, Democratic voters are very open to the kinds of ideas that Mamdani has. Other candidates can replicate this sort of approach, and provided they demonstrate a commitment to their platform, provided that they connect with their constituencies, and simply tell the geriatric oligarchs in power, fuck you, they have a much better shot at electoral success than trying to do the same old shit that we've seen coming out of the Democratic Party for years, especially in states like Tennessee, where their parties can't even figure out if they support going to fucking war with Iran or not. All this said, however, does that leave me with having faith in this fucked up electoral process of ours, or with any faith in the so-called liberal resistance to the fascist in power? No. A lot of points I made in my segment earlier in June, lambasting the Democratic Party's failure, those points still hold. I think we're still at a point where the working class is going to find a lot more alleviation from their suffering in committing to a general strike come 2028. I mean, any semblance of hope that can be found from Mamdani's victory still depends on the Trump regime allowing the electoral process to proceed as usual, and as we'll get to here in a second, that is a serious concern, given the oppressive tendencies of the freaks running this country right now. So, no, I don't think, I don't think Mamdani's victory is like this defining moment where we say, grab our pitchforks, grab our torches, grab our AK-47s. It's not going to be something like that, right? Mamdani's not going to end capitalism or cease the unending exploitation of workers here or across the globe. It's not even certain that his and other electoral victories on Tuesday will be easily replicable in other areas of the country. Given the track record of the DNC in responding to such campaigns, it's probably even unlikely that any sort of internal resistance to campaigns like Mamdani's will cease. We'll get to that in a second as well, because we're already starting to see some of that. And also, there's still a general election, by the way. So, a lot of other factors before even one can officially declare Mamdani mayor of New York City. But the Mamdani win and all the progressive wins in New York, they are still a bit of legitimate hope for something good to happen in American politics in the next few years. And at a time when a fascist threat is digging its grubby claws into our daily lives, that's something worth celebrating, IMO. Yeah, but we can't celebrate too much. No, we can't. Not right now, because the ruling class is going fucking nuts over the Mamdani victory. We'll still do a little bit of celebrating because we will be having some fun, enjoying the absolute mental breakdowns of a bunch of right-wing commentators and billionaires. But there are some serious concerns that we also will need to bring up here. So, for one, we've already got billionaire scumbags like Bill Men pouring his microscopic heart out into a Twitter post where he freaks the fuck out about Mamdani's victory, to the point where I'm not even going to try to find it in this whole manifesto that he wrote, but he was freaking out to the point where he makes a plea for anyone to step up and run against Mamdani in the general election, offering millions of dollars in donations. God, I gotta take a drink of water. That Bill Hackman thing just really threw out my fucking voice. how entitled do you have to be to think it's morally acceptable for you to say, nah, fuck what the voters want. I'm going to attempt to buy my favorite candidate's way to victory because I'm a billionaire. That means I'm super important. I'm super smart, and I'm good at everything. So that means I get to deserve to, overturn the democratic will of the people because I'm a billionaire. Yeah. Here's the issue with, no, I'm not even going to try. I'm going to throw my voice if I try to do that bit again. Here's the issue with Ackman. God, now I want to call him Hack. His actual name is Bill Ackman, but I don't even feel like he deserves, like, I don't know, the kindness or the validity of, like, having his actual last name spoken aloud, because that's how much of a piece of shit he is. Here's the issue with Ackman's strategy, though. Cuomo had that financial backing that Ackman's offering right now. Matter of fact, Cuomo got $250,000 from Ackman for his race, and obviously that did jack shit for him. And so I don't know what the fuck makes Bill Ackman think that, like, throwing a bunch of money at a new fucking candidate is gonna, make things more favorable towards him. So, you know what? I honestly can't wait to see what spineless shill Ackman is able to prop up, just so we all have the pleasure of seeing this entitled billionaire piece of shit burn a bunch of cash on a hopeless dream. On top of that, Fox News has been crashing hard. Like, hard. So there's a Twitter user who posted a couple of screenshots of some Fox News broadcast fear-mongering about Zohran Mamdani, or at least trying to fear-monger. This one, it literally just says at the top, Zohran Mamdani's platform, and it says, housing, freeze the rent, building affordable housing. Oh no! He's going to build affordable housing. He's going to make landlords stop jacking up the rent for poor tenants. Then, like, under affordability, creating city-owned grocery stores. Oh no! Free fare buses. What? Communism. Like, they're literally like just like trying to share his platform, and they think it like sounds crazy, wacky, or radical, but it is all just genuinely base stuff. And here's another one. Zohran Mamdani's socialist promises. No cost childcare. Baby baskets to newborns. Not the babies. $30 minimum wage. No, not the workers. Actually getting paid a decent wage. Oh God, please, no, save us. Ah. Like, and I love the caption for the tweet is just, Fox News is running a free campaign for Zohran Mamdani. Yeah. Okay, so you got Fox News just having these absolute ridiculous crash outs where they're trying their damnedest to make him look bad, but they literally just can't touch him. You've also got his main opponent right now, the incumbent and corrupt Eric Adams, only being able to yell anti-Semitism on CNN without citing anything specific.
A terrorist organization.
What specifically has Mamdani said that you think is anti-Semitic?
Pro-Hamas. Hamas is a dangerous terrorist organization that should be.
I can't get over that. So what specifically has Zohran Mamdani said that, like, makes you think that, like, he supports terrorists? Pro-Hamas, Hamas. Okay, I'm going to start this over. I'm going to turn my camera off so I don't interrupt this at all. But my God, that was so fucking funny. I'm going to shut up.
What specifically has Mamdani said that you think is anti-Semitic?
Pro-Hamas. Hamas is a dangerous terrorist organization that should be. Destroyed. When you embrace the philosophies of Hamas, not only what they do to their own people, but what they did in Gaza to lift them up and praise them, I think that's a clear indicator that something is wrong with that.
No
but
quote.
When did he praise Hamas? I don't recall him ever praising Hamas.
There's several videos, even during his days of being a rap artist, of praising Hamas and other terrorist groups. And so, a little research, you'll be able to find it. But I'm not competing against him only for what he's done and praising Hamas.
What specific?
Literally, he's like a caricature of like an Israeli leader, or like an Israeli politician, where he just like says Hamas, like, I don't know, some kind of like instinctive reflex. Jesus Christ, this dude's gonna get fucking squashed in the general. Also, I love the fact too that, so here's the deal, right? CNN, so CNN has bent over backwards to like, promote the Israeli propaganda line about like, gotta get Hamas. That's why we gotta bomb all these, that's why we gotta like drop bombs all over the Gaza Strip, just so like, we can finally eliminate Hamas. And on top of it, they even were actually allowed access into Gaza, but it was only with like the approval of either like the IDF or like some other agency within the Israeli government. And the Israeli government even had to like look over the final final footage that they were like gonna, that they were gonna broadcast. So CNN, like, they've bent over backwards to make sure that like the Israeli propaganda line is carried out on CNN. So if there was actually some kind of evidence suggesting that Mamdani was like pro-Hamas or like, pro-terrorism or whatever, CNN would have been sure to have had that shit ready for when they asked Mayor Eric Adams that question. And they didn't even have that, so they just had to ask him, hey, dog, what evidence do you got? Because, like, we couldn't find any. And the most he could say was just, Hamas. Right after the election, there were some of us waiting on the edge of our seats wondering, what's Trump going to call him? Because this fascist tyrant of ours had established a reputation for having some catchy insult names like Sloppy Steve, Sleepy Joe, etc. And he had some low-hanging fruit to grab, too. There was a Twitter user, I got to pull this up. Like, there was a Twitter user that had a whole list of potential nicknames that Trump would call Mamdani. Like, oh man, where is it? Yeah. Call me Mamdani, scrawny Mamdani. And there are also obviously some more bigoted ones that he would not have an issue with using. But, yeah, he didn't even try. Like, he didn't even try to, like, toss out a jab or an insult. This is what he says, quote, "It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed that line. Zohran Mamdani." Oh, God, my voice is so sore from the whole Bill Hackman thing and like the New York Times screaming thing. I can't even do like a Donald Trump impression right now. And frankly, you probably don't want me to because my impressions are kind of shit. Quote, "It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Democratic primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous." I love this user highlighted. This user who like took the screenshot, he highlights, "He looks terrible." Like, it's coming from fucking Donald Trump. Like, literally the dude looks like a walking fucking pig. Anyways, he looks terrible. His voice is grating. Again, coming from Donald Trump. He's not very smart. Again, the irony here. He's got AOC +3. I think it's supposed to mean AOC and the squad. Dummies all backing him. And even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Schumer hasn't even endorsed him. He literally just congratulated him. And also, should go without saying, Chuck Schumer is not Palestinian. And also, I don't think he's even voted once to place an arms embargo on Israel. So I don't know where the fuck Trump gets any of this shit. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country. That was his response. So yeah, like no like iconic name calling or insults. It was just kind of like your stereotypical like deluded Fox grandpa rambling into the void. Like that was it, right? Since then, however, his comments have gotten a lot more concerning, like a lot.
Watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. He's, we're going to look at everything, and ideally, he's going to turn out to be much less than a communist. But right now, he's a communist. That's not a socialist. I've always said we will not have socialism in this country. In the speeches, I said, well, what? They skipped socialism. And you got a lot of them like that. And you see AOC, she's out there with her, bad IQ. She's out there ranting and raving about how wonderful he is. And look, so far he's winning. He still has a race to win, but so far he's winning, and he has an advantage as a Democrat in New York City. I was there a long time ago, and it was a long time since a Republican won the city. But you would think that a Republican would be able to win. Or you have a good independent running, Mayor Adams, who's a very good person. I helped him out a little bit. He had a problem.
Oh, yeah, you did.
He was unfairly hurt over this question. He made a statement to the effect that this is terrible. New York City can't have all these immigrants come in. And like he was indicted the following day.
So, yeah, Trump, he's legit spewing out to the entire country that the candidate who just won the Democratic primary for the mayoral race in New York, that this candidate all of a sudden might be illegal, might be an illegal immigrant, despite the fact that Zohran legitimately became a citizen after he immigrated here with his parents. I want to say in I forget the exact year. Someone can, fact check me. The point being is Trump is now trying to imply that he's illegal, probably so he can justify to deport Zohran. Look, I probably shouldn't even have to spell this out, but in case you aren't getting the full picture yet, yeah, Trump is looking at trying to take whatever action he can to try to, take out Mamdani and make sure that he doesn't win the general election in November. Now, Mamdani did tweet out a statement in response to that. He says, quote, "The President of the United States just threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put in a detention camp, and deported. Not because I have broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you. We will not accept this intimidation." That Trump included praise for Eric Adams in his authoritarian threats is unsurprising, but highlights the urgency of bringing an end to this mayor's time in City Hall. At the very moment when MAGA Republicans are attempting to destroy the social safety net, kick millions of New Yorkers off of health care, and enrich their billionaire donors at the expense of working families, it is a scandal that Eric Adams echoes this president's division, distraction, and hate. Voters will resoundingly reject it in November. I mean, it's definitely good that he's sticking his middle finger up at the thug that's in the White House, but we got to remember, Nothing is off the table for this psychotic, geriatric freak. I mean, this guy is already using ICE as a Gestapo force to deport immigrants without any sort of due process. If he tries to target a candidate for the New York City mayoral race, whatever facade remains of this pseudo-democratic system of ours, it is poof, gone. And if you expect the Democrats to even rhetorically do anything about it, I got a bridge to sell you. While Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries did congratulate Mamdani for the win, they haven't endorsed him yet. That's fucking big for the Democratic candidate in the New York City mayoral race, because that's historically been an automatic endorsement. You win the primary, boom. Democrats will start coming out and endorsing you. Think I got a burp here? Ooh, yeah. Anyways, in all fairness, though, Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries, he did rebuke Trump once over one of his posts attacking Mamdani, but that's all we've gotten so far from the Democratic establishment. That said, for all the reasons I outlined earlier, yes, Mamdani's win is absolutely worth celebrating. It at least tells Democratic voters what they should be looking for in a winning candidate. They want a candidate who says, fuck the rich. They want a candidate who, even if they're running for a local or state office that has little bearing on foreign policy, is still willing to speak out against the war machine that's effectively paying off politicians to look away from the war crimes that they enable. Most importantly, they want a candidate who says, I understand the plight of my working class neighbors, and I'm going to fight for government programs that will bring us all out of this economic despair. But while his win is a cause for celebration, these threats from Trump should scare the shit out of all of us. Because if he does follow through with such a threat, if he even attempts to deport a candidate who wants to enact some basic socialist policies, that's going to scare any future Democratic candidates from running a similar campaign, making the prospects of a peaceful revolution impossible. And sorry to end on a bit of a liberal note, but all you JFK fans probably remember his warning about making such a revolution impossible.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Hey friend, thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of The Unnatural State of Affairs. If you like what I had to say, hit that like button. Got some thoughts? Share them in the comments section below. And of course, be sure to hit that like button so you can be notified the moment a new episode drops. The show broadcasts on Radio Free Nashville every Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Tune in at www.radiofreenashville.org to enjoy some nihilistic left-leaning commentary and an hour of punk and rap music. Thanks again, friend, and I'll see you next week. Take it easy.